Hello, I'm John. This is a painting video and you're watching Wargames Models and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a real-time painting video to paint one of my Renegade Ogryns that were produced by Forge World. They're some of my favourite models that Forge World have produced. Unfortunately they're not available anymore, but I have got my hands on quite a few over the last few years and thought it was about time to paint them. So if we have a quick look at the one that I've done as a test piece, I've worked with a limited palette on this one, so you can see we've got the raw flesh wherever it's visible. Any of the other details are in a metallic finish, and then we have a kind of a leathery dirty fabric, and then the green eyes and light as a kind of a point of colour, a point of interest. So I'm going to run through how I painted all of this. And as with a few of my other real-time painting videos, once I start the process, I'm not going to cut or edit it. I have a hairdryer available to speed up the drying process, but I just want to show you the whole process from start to finish without any editing. The only time it will be edited, obviously, will be if I'm disturbed somehow by either my dogs or alternatively phone call, knock at the door, that kind of thing. But I'll always mention that if it happens. So, this is the Renegade Ogryn I'm going to paint in this session. So using exactly the same colour schemes. So I'm going to start out with the skin, and to do that I've got 4 paints. I'm going to start with some Reekland Flesh shade, or you could use any other kind of skin colour that you want. I have 2 whites that will go over the top of that, and then a Bal Red wash to then finish off the skin. All of the details and metal sections are going to be done with some lead belcher, and then I've got 2 washes which go over any of the metalwork or the clothes, and that's Nuln Oil or Devlan Mud. You can use alternatives to the Devlan Mud, but it's still one of my favourite paints, this one. I've got a few in stock, so I like to use that one over the Agrax Earthshade. And then for the green, I have Gauze Blaster Green and Thraka Green to go over the top of that. Oh, let's start with our Reekland Flesh shade and get that on the model. Get my brush wet. Now, what I'm looking to do with this is just get the shade on wherever there's any details. So I'm not trying to paint the whole thing, just where there's a few details. Apologies if you hear my neighbour's dog barking. So these Renegade Ogryns are actually going to be part of a Necromunda gang that I'm working on. I'll do a video of the whole gang when I've got all of them painted. But yeah, these are some of my favourite Forge World models that were produced for, I think it was the Siege of Vrax. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I can go and have a look at my books later to see if it's the right one. But yeah, really loved these models. Now, the gang itself that I'm going to do is going to be an Ogryn gang, but they're going to be worshipping chaos, so I'm going to use some of the chaos rules. And I think I'm going to go with Nurgle as their deity, but I haven't 100% decided. But I think it fits the kind of the style and look of them. So with these, there's not lots and lots of skin on these, but enough to get a nice look and a different contrast. Originally I was going to try and paint these monochrome, so just with black and whites, but I decided when I was doing the test piece to start with the skin and try and get that looking like quite a raw flesh, so full of kind of sores and things like that. And then it evolved to one metallic colour in a few places, and then just using 2 washes to get the rest of the colours. So it's just building up in layers, but it's quite a nice finish. I'm really happy with the result of the test model. So let me just have a look to see if I've got all of the skin areas. Okay, I think that's mostly there. So that was the Reekland Flesh Shade. What I'm going to do quickly is force dry this with the hairdryer so I can get on to the next stage. Now the key thing, if you're doing force drying with the hairdryer, is making sure you don't get it too hot, especially on the resin models, because as you can see already, that's become quite wobbly. So I've got to let that cool down to make sure it doesn't break or twist out of line. There is, as well on this, I don't know if it comes up on camera, there's a few little bits of fluff that got on the model when I was priming it. So a few of the pieces you might see me get some tweezers out to pull that off. Okay, so next stage I want to dry brush the skin. So I'm going to be using the Pallid Witch Flesh, and that's going to be dry brushed onto wherever the skin is. So probably going to lose quite a bit of that Reekland flesh, but what we will gain is it will stay in any of the crevices, any of the cracks and details. So I put the paint on the brush, then knock most of it off, and then I am doing quite a heavy dry brush, so there is still quite a bit of paint on the brush itself. This is the first coat of white that I want to put on. Okay, so it's easy as that for that layer. So I'll wash that dry brush off, and then I've got another dry brush which I'm going to put the next white coat on, and that's going to be Corax White. So it's really going to lighten off the flesh itself. I'm not going to worry about force drying the previous coat, because I put such a thin layer on. it's going to dry quite quickly anyway, but I don't mind it mixing a little bit with the Corax white. And what I will do, once I've done the red ink after this layer, I will go around with the Corax white again to tidy up areas like that on the back, so where that strap is, it'll end up having a cleaner wash over the top of it rather than having any of the red or pinks skin tones in there. I want to get quite a bit of Corax over this. Oops, so I poke the camera with the brush, but okay. So there we have that white over the top. I'm going to do another round of that because I just want to knock it back a little bit more in places. Don't want to hit the camera. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. So it's the whole idea of this layering up of starting with the dark flesh tone and then building it lighter. I just want it to look just quite kind of almost dead and rotten. So while that dries for a little bit, if we have a look at the test model that I did, you can see how you've got the real white sections and then the raw flesh around there. So let's quickly just put a bit of a hairdryer over the top of this before I go on to the red. Just need to let my dog out. So I'll have to get up again in a minute to shut the door when it comes back in. But okay, so we're going to go on to the Bal Red. And this is going to go on any spot that has got either an open wound or where you've got kind of some open sections to any metal bits that are going in, that kind of thing. So this is a little bit more patchy than when I put on the flesh shade. And basically what I'm looking at for this is wherever this borders another colour, the skin, I want to make sure that I've got this red there. So you could use this on loads of different models as a technique. I'm going to try it with different colours on another model that I want to do a video of. I want to do a test model with a Gene Stealer so I can paint my Patriarch conversion that I've been working on. What I want to make sure is I do the fingertips a lot heavier with the red, so they look really raw and painful compared to the rest of the hand. So you get that real red kind of finish on there. Just get some of the creases done. But yeah, this is going to be one of the first videos of 2024. I've come up with quite a few ideas for the channel this year, so please stay tuned and keep an eye on what I produce. Also, if you're new to the channel, it's always nice to drop a like and a follow so I can see who's out there, who's interested in the stuff that I'm doing. This is all part of my hobby, so I know it doesn't get seen by a lot of people, but those who do interact with my videos, I really do appreciate it, and it's quite nice to have conversations with the few people who leave comments. Yeah, the whole point of this whole painting process that I'm doing with these models is trying to work out simple painting processes that give a really good final effect on a model. I'm going to leave that quite heavy on the elbow there because it's got quite a nasty kind of wound underneath the elbow. So let's just get the red on these hands, and then I'll go and close the door now the dogs are back in. You'll hear me mention dog or dogs because I've got two of them. Sometimes one of them wants to go out and the other one's just asleep, or they both want to do stuff. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let me just go and close the door and I'll be back. Okay, so let's get the hairdryer on this a little bit. Not too much. Just want to knock back some of the red to dry it off. Okay, so the next step is going to be some lead belcher, and that is going to be on all of the metal details. Just seen some more fluff that I'm going to pluck off this. Always, whenever you're going to paint your models, make sure you dust them properly before you prime them. I'm a bit impatient with these ones, and I'm having to fight the problem of little bits of fluff on the models in places. Doesn't matter too much once it's painted, but yeah, be careful when you do it. Okay, so the lead belcher is going to go on pretty much all of the main details. So let's start on this leg. So I'm not worrying about thinning down my paint, just want to paint this onto each of these areas. So what I'll probably do as I'm working around this, I'll do everything round the left leg, then I'll do everything around the right leg, then I'll move up the body, and I could put different colours on these, but I want them to be nice and simple and hopefully give some other people some inspiration of ways they could paint their models. I'd really like to know as well if you like to see this process of the real-time painting, so the actual time it takes me to paint it rather than fast forwarding sections to get to bits that have kind of already been done. I personally quite like doing this to show you everything that goes into it, but I'd really like to build on your comments of what you prefer to see. So please drop a comment about the processes that you like to see, because you might prefer just to watch it at each stage and then fast forward through. Benefit though I find of me doing it like these videos is you can just fast forward it if you want to. I might work out a way to flash something up on the screen in later videos that lets you see when the next step happens. So while I'm painting all of this lead belcher, I tend not to thin my paints down. I put them on a palette and then I'll run with a wet brush occasionally, but I tend to go with how they come out of the pot, and I might mix the paints on the palette a little bit. I know there's lots of different methods for painting. People like to do thin coats, people like to use a wet palette. Okay, let's start on this boot. It has some metal sections on. Yeah, these models, the Renegade Ogryns, they're some of my all-time favourites. I've got a few of them. I've recently managed to get my hands on the last few that I don't have to complete the set, which I'm really looking forward to painting up in this style when I get them. So by the time this video's released, I should have them, and hopefully I've built them. Okay, that's that bit done. I keep having to look up at the camera to make sure what I'm painting's in view for you guys. I sometimes get a bit carried away while I'm painting and forget that I'm recording. It's why I've started just to randomly babble and talk while I'm doing these, so I remember what I'm actually doing. Next panel. So I'm not being too careful while I paint these. Just help my dog up onto the sofa. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm not being too tidy. I'm not worried too much about if I go over any edges, because I will go round with the Corax white to tidy a few of the sections. If I go over the edges at all. Okay, onto the belt buckle and cod piece. So the benefit of once I've done this stage, then going on to tidying up any sections with the white gives the metallic time to dry before I do the wash over the top of the metallic. So the metallic and pipe work I wash with the Nuln Oil, and then anything else after that gets washed with the Devlan Mud. I'm not worried if I go over the edges with that Nuln Oil though, because it just adds little points of detail and so on. Okay, so that's the boot and all the belt metal plates done. Let's do a few of these other metal plates on the body that I can see them on the front. So let's get the edge of this pipe work. We'll have to tidy that up with the Corax white in a minute. This brush has seen better days, so I do need to take better care of my brushes. Make sure I get the eye holes done. Okay, let's do this big bell jar, whatever it is, coming out the side of his head. So I haven't done the base yet for the other one, the test model. What I tend to do with the bases is I wait till I've finished painting a whole squad or a whole gang, and I'll do the bases all at the same time so I can get a nice coherent finish with the bases. I've done it in the past where I've done bases as I've worked my way along, and they've either not quite matched or I end up running out of paint or something like that, and it doesn't always look the best. So that's why I leave the bases until I'm happy with all of them at the end. Carefully hitting the camera again. Make sure I'm on camera. So yeah, I'm being a little bit more careful when it comes to the metal areas going next to any of the skin, which I've painted. Let's get these done. But I'm not too worried if I slightly go over the edges. I'm sure there'll be people out there who really want to make sure it stays nice and tidy. But I really don't mind if a little bit of paint goes over the edges. The thing I find more, it's... Oh, it's my dog. You alright? She's a bit tired. I went out for a walk before I did this, so she always gets a little bit whiny before she goes to sleep. That one. I'll try and be a little bit more careful on this one. Don't want to be too much over the lines while I'm painting these. Okay, so that's done, that's done. Right, the ones on the back. Oh, there's a metal plate on the back as well. Got to remember to do the big concrete pole as well that this fella's holding on to. And one thing I'm thinking of doing with some painting videos is some paint along videos. So I'll talk about at the beginning of the video all of the things that you're going to need to paint the model, and then go through each step so you can paint at the same time as me. Whether anyone would like that or not, I don't know. Whether anyone watches these paint videos and paints the same models at the same time, be really interested to hear about it. But yeah, I'd like to get a little bit more interactive with everyone who takes the time out to watch these videos. So if there is a model you'd like to see painted, please drop a comment. It'd be really nice to paint suggestions. And painting the models is one of my favourite parts of the hobby. I do love converting things, do love the making, do love playing, I do love reading the lore and just talking about the stuff in general. But painting for me is one of the best parts. It's when you can put your signature onto a model, you can make it look how you want it to. You can define your hobby with the way that you paint things. I don't know if I have a painting style. If you think I do, please let me know what it is. But yeah, I do love the painting. It is a big therapy for me. It calms me down, clears my head. Doing these videos, I still find it a bit strange that I'm sitting here talking to myself while I'm painting. Hopefully it doesn't annoy you guys too much while I babble on while I paint. And yeah, like I said, I hope you enjoy these real-time painting videos, so you get an idea of how long it takes to paint things. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how long it takes to paint something. It's as long as you're enjoying the process, as long as you're getting out of the hobby the enjoyment that you're looking for. That's the important bit. Sometimes I don't feel like painting. Sometimes you lose the hobby mojo and end up kind of just looking at models for a bit. I have many projects that I need to be in the right mood for to do anything with. So you might see videos occasionally pop up of projects that I haven't worked on for a while, suddenly have a bit of energy to do so. Okay, so that's all of the metalwork on the body done. Now going to do the bits on the big concrete post that is pulled up. So let's paint some of this rebar that's sticking out the bottom, these spikes, whatever it is. And this whole section of concrete, that's just going to get a wash over the top of it, maybe a couple, just to intensify the colour. Yeah, there's not going to be any separate paint going on there apart from that wash. Something that I'm really enjoying trying while I'm painting for some models is really limit the palette that I'm working on. So this model itself has 9 different paints. 4 for the skin, 1 for all the kind of the metalwork and the accessories, and then 2 for the eyes and that kind of the spot detail. I've had individual models that I've used 30-40 different paints on while painting, and I'll do a video of one of those sometime soon so you can see the whole process. Those tend to be much longer paint jobs though than this kind of limited palette one, mainly because as I'm kind of painting them, I'm thinking about the process that I'm going through. I'm kind of mixing colours, tweaking them, adjusting them, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of other things happening when I do those. So that might have to be a multi-part video for one of those ones. I do have my Inquisitor conversion that I need to paint soon. So that might be a perfect one for that, because there's quite a few different colours that are in that. So the other thing I'm not too worried about with these ones is if you can't see the area easily, I'm not too worried about painting it. So if you've got to twist the model round and round and round to see something, you're not going to see it on the gaming table or on the display stand. Okay. Right, so I think that's all the metal work done. So let's have a look. I can't see anything else. Even if there is, I'm not too worried if I miss it. So next job, I'm going to get the Corax White, and any areas that I've overpainted, I'm going to just quickly go over with a bit of Corax White to tidy it up. So have a look. There we go. There's a few bits in here. And then once I've gone over it with this in those areas, I'll give it a hair dry again, and then I'll start on the washes. Make sure that I'm not going off the screen too much. Okay. Areas around his eyes. Pipe work. Is that everywhere? Yeah, I think that is. Okay. So before I hairdry it, quickly run through what we've done so far. So on the skin we started with a wash of Reekland Flesh Shade around any of the details. Then 2 dry brush layers, one of the Pallid Witch Flesh, then one of Corax White. Then picked out details with the Bal Red. Obviously you can use equivalents with these, you don't have to use the exact paints. Then I've gone around and painted any of the metallic details with Lead Belcher. And the next step, over all those metallic areas, I'm going to go with the Nuln Oil. So first things first, let's give it a little bit of a hair dry, because I want to make sure that metallic is dry thoroughly before I put any Nuln Oil on, because it doesn't work that nicely. It can run a bit, the metallic, it doesn't look as good. So let's dry this off. Little touch test. Nothing on my finger. Okay. So let's start with the Nuln Oil. I'm going to start with the areas on or next to the skin. So the key thing, whenever I'm doing washes like this, I don't worry if it runs into another area, because it'll give a nice little bit of detail. I'll highlight a few little bits and so on. I think this is one of my favourite methods of painting, is picking up extra details with inks and washes and building up the look that way. So I might come back to some of the pipe work as I go through, just to change the colours and so on. I really do need to sort my brushes out. Might be a treat for myself after I've done a few more videos, is maybe do testing brushes for a video. That might be a good one. Make sure I'm still on camera while I'm doing this. Yeah, apologies if I start to stop talking while I'm concentrating. Okay. Make sure I get... So the great thing about Nuln Oil, Agrax Earthshade or the Devlan Mud, the amount of detail you can get really quickly by just washing it over the top. I really love the way that it gives you that kind of rapid finish. And I do love building it up with different layers of it, different coloured washes as well, adding all those kind of loads of different finishes. Really, really enjoy it. I love the kind of the slight non-control you have. You get some nice happy accidents. But it also gives you a really nicely finished model very quickly. You can, I was tempted with these when I was first doing them, was to actually just go over the whole model with Nuln Oil and then pick out just a few little details like the eyes and a few other bits. I might try it with another model to see what it looks like. So just building up layers and layers of Nuln Oil to get different depths to the paint. But yeah, when I was experimenting with the test model, I ended up going down the route of the skin colour and then the 2 washes and that kind of thing. So didn't happen on these models, but I will do it on another one to see what it looks like. I've got an idea of which 1 or 2 I want to do it with. What's the time at the moment? It's about 45 minutes or so of the video, so I must be painting for the about 40 minutes, 35-40 minutes of painting. So with Nuln Oil, I'm not worried if I go over the edges on the body where the white is, because it'll just add a little bit more depth when I do the Devlan Mud over the top. Okay, one's on top. I've got to do the pipe work as well before I forget. Hand trimmer. Sometimes get a hand trimmer. That's another story. Not for now. But it is an interesting story. Oop, make sure that you can see what I'm doing. What I need to do is mark on the table, on my cutting mat, where the camera sees, so I can always make sure I'm within that sight line while I'm doing this. Okay. This is the one thing, you know, when you've got really well sculpted models with a lot of detail in, washes like this really pick up that detail. Really reduces the amount of work you need to put into when painting. Might have to do a few more coats on those tubes, but for now let's just concentrate on these bits. I'll put a bit of Nuln Oil on the ends of the fingers as well while they're looks a bit like dirty hands. Right, I'm going to change the brush in a minute to do that big concrete block. Do another bit on there. Make sure I do the eye holes. Okay, let's change the brush. Gonna go up for a bigger brush now. This is just going to be a lot of the Nuln Oil, and then I'll probably as well with the concrete go over it with some of the Devlan Mud as well. The whole point of this is just to get a lot of that shade into all the areas. So I don't want it to pool too much, I just want to get that colour. Yeah, okay. Okay, so might come back to a bit of the Nuln Oil, but what I want to do now is get some of the Devlan Mud onto other bits. I'm not waiting for the Nuln Oil to dry, because I don't mind if this mixes in at all as we paint. This is just going to go onto everywhere where I haven't painted. So I don't mind how this pools as I paint it around everything, but I will paint each individual part as a part. So at the moment I'm working on the boot. And then once I've finished the boot, I'll move on to the trousers and that kind of thing. So it allows some different times for drying to actually occur. So you get a few different tonal differences here and there. Always clean your models before you prime them. I thought when I did prime these originally, there was a little bit of fluff. I thought, it'll be okay. But it has come back to haunt me. Let's be a little bit more careful around here. So what I did on the previous one as well, once this had dried, there were a few sections where I went over it again just to get a deeper colour. I'll do the same with the Nuln Oil in a few places. I realise I've stopped talking a lot more at this stage, just because I want to make sure I get all the bits that I need. So concentrate a little bit more. I'm using a big brush to get it on quick. I might go back with a smaller one for a few other details after. And I don't mind if this goes onto the hands or anything like that. It's kind of, it adds some more depth. We'll just go over the feet again quickly on the boots. Just want to see if I get a bit darker on there. Oops. Okay, we've got most of those areas. Right, let's just get a nice big drift of Devlan Mud and then put it around on this. Okay, right, time for another hair dry before I do a bit more Nuln Oil, I think. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Nuln Oil, and what I'm going to do is anywhere that I've missed with the Devlan Mud or any bits I want slightly darker, I'm going to run that into there. So I'm going to start with these tubes on the front. Then I did see a few little spots here that I'm just going to put it into. So this is just going to pick up a few other little bit of details here and there. Just roughly over the front of the boots. Just going to try and get a bit of a edge created on between the skin and the clothes in a few places. Okay, I think it needs to be darker down there, I think. A bit more of a colour contrast there. Likewise, just down there. Under that arm. There's a pipe that I didn't quite see, but let's just shade the whole thing under there. Sorry, Headbutt the camera. Okay, one last bit of Nuln Oil down there. Okay, now it's time for a final hair dry before the last little bit of detail. Okay, so I concentrated on the eyes there, but I've seen a few little spots that I want to get with the Nuln Oil again. But it's not going to be where the detail is, so I'm going to be able to let this dry naturally. Where was that? Oh, that was just around there. Some under there. Back of those pipes. Hand, put it around there we go. Okay, just do the ends of those fingers. Okay, so now I've got to this stage. Really happy so far with how this has turned out. So next step is a little bit of point colour, which is going to be in the eyes. They're quite nice being just little black holes, but I do like that little bit of spot colour. So this is going to be when it either goes perfectly right or completely wrong. Eyes, irrelevant of what you do, are a nightmare. Okay. A little bit of overpaint there, so let's just knock that back. There we go, perfect. Right, I'm happy that worked. Force dry those now. So the next step, I'm going to get the Thacker green and drop a bit of that into each of the eyes. Perfect, there we go. Let's have one last look to see if there's any bits that I've missed, but I don't think so. But yeah, there we have it. I think I'm going to call it there. So there is the original test model that I did, and here is the one I've just completed. So roughly an hour or so of painting. I'll leave some pictures at the end so you can have a bit more of a detailed look. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please drop a comment if you want to say anything about it or have any ideas for future videos. But for now, that's it. So thanks for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models and Other Hobbies.